Big news. Your soulmate is happier than ever. Because of one meaningful change you made. My beloved child, freeze this moment for just a heartbeat, because what you're about to discover was never meant to arrive by accident. Somewhere beyond what your eyes can measure, a quiet shift has already taken place. You didn't hear it. You didn't expect it. Yet its ripple has reached someone whose heart has been searching for peace far longer than anyone realizes. And that is why this message found you today. There is a reason the title spoke to you before anything else. It wasn't random curiosity. It was recognition. Because the greatest news isn't that your soulmate suddenly changed overnight. The greatest news is that your one meaningful change became the reason their world began to feel lighter than it has in a very long time. Think about that for a second. What if the smallest decision you almost overlooked became the turning point in someone else's emotional journey? Most people believe life changes through dramatic moments. But hidden destinies rarely work that way. They move quietly, one thought at a time, one choice at a time, one unseen transformation after another. While everyone else was waiting for something loud to happen, your path was being rewritten in silence. Stay a little longer, because this next part may connect dots you've never connected before. Not long ago, your energy carried questions. You searched for answers. You wondered whether your efforts mattered. You wondered if becoming a better version of yourself would ever make a difference. Yet every sincere step forward created a signal, a frequency impossible to imitate. And although you couldn't see who was responding to it, someone was. Your soulmate didn't suddenly become happier because of luck. They became happier because, without realizing it, they finally stopped feeling the invisible distance that once surrounded them. Your growth gave them permission to breathe differently. Your patience reminded them that genuine connections are never built through pressure. Your quiet confidence became something they could feel even before they could fully explain it. Imagine standing beside a calm lake just before sunrise. The water barely moves. Then a single drop touches the surface. Tiny circles spread farther and farther until the entire lake begins to shimmer. That single drop seems insignificant, until you notice every wave it created. Your meaningful change was that first ripple. And here's something very few people understand. People often search outside themselves for signs that destiny is working. They wait for dramatic announcements. They expect impossible coincidences. But real transformation usually begins when someone chooses peace instead of panic, growth instead of fear, purpose instead of endless doubt. What if that is exactly what happened with you? What if, while you believed nothing remarkable was taking place, your soulmate quietly noticed a difference they couldn't ignore? Maybe it wasn't through words. Maybe it wasn't through a conversation. Maybe it wasn't even through direct contact. Sometimes awareness arrives before meetings do. Sometimes hearts recognize change before minds can explain it. That is why they feel lighter today. That is why hope returned. That is why something inside them finally whispered, the future doesn't feel uncertain anymore. Wait until the final moment, because the next realization changes everything. Picture your soulmate looking toward tomorrow with a smile they didn't expect to have. Not because every problem disappeared. Not because life suddenly became perfect. but because, for the first time in a long while, possibility felt stronger than hesitation. That feeling didn't appear out of nowhere. It followed the invisible trail left by your own evolution. You became more patient. You became more intentional. You stopped chasing every distraction. You started trusting your own path instead of comparing it with everyone else's. Those choices echoed farther than you imagined. And somewhere, almost at the exact moment you embraced that quiet transformation, another heart felt the weight begin to lift. Coincidence? Or evidence that meaningful change always reaches farther than the person creating it? Before you move on, keep this question with you. If one unseen decision could already brighten another person's future, what incredible chapter might begin when both journeys finally move in the same direction? The answer is closer than it has ever been. And this is only the beginning. A quiet truth is about to rise to the surface, and once you notice it, the entire story begins to make sense. Up until now, you've only seen one side of the transformation. But every meaningful change creates a second chapter, one that unfolds in places no one is watching. This is where your soulmate's happiness became impossible to hide. Think about this carefully. There are moments when a person suddenly begins smiling more, speaking with greater confidence, or looking toward the future with unexpected excitement. To everyone else, it seems mysterious. They call it luck. They call it coincidence. But deep inside, they know something shifted. They may not even have the words for it yet, but they can feel that life is gently moving toward something beautiful instead of away from it. Your soulmate has been experiencing exactly that. Not because someone handed them all the answers. Not because every obstacle disappeared overnight. But because your meaningful change quietly removed a fear they had carried for longer than they ever admitted. It's as if an invisible door finally opened, allowing fresh air into a room that had been closed for years. Stay with this thought, because the next detail reveals why this matters so much. There was a time when they questioned whether genuine connections could truly last. They wondered if people really changed, or if everyone eventually returned to old habits. Then something unexpected happened. Without making a grand announcement, without trying to prove anything, you simply became more authentic. Authenticity has a strange power. It doesn't demand attention. It attracts trust. And trust is the one thing your soulmate had been waiting to believe in again. That is why they find themselves smiling during ordinary moments. They catch themselves imagining conversations that once felt impossible. They begin making plans with quiet confidence instead of hesitation. Even the smallest victories feel brighter because hope has returned where uncertainty once lived. Here's the fascinating part. They may not fully realize that your inner growth helped awaken this feeling. They simply know that something inside them feels lighter, calmer, and more certain than before. Sometimes destiny works this way. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It whispers through peace. Before you go any further, remember this: the greatest transformations are often the ones no audience ever sees. And if this message resonates with you, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if these stories continue to inspire your journey, consider subscribing so we can keep exploring these remarkable moments together. Now, let's step one layer deeper. Imagine your soulmate pausing for just a second in the middle of an ordinary day. Nothing extraordinary is happening around them. Yet suddenly, they feel grateful. Not for one specific event, but for the direction life seems to be taking. That quiet gratitude becomes the clearest sign that happiness is no longer something they are chasing, it is something they are beginning to experience. Why? Because meaningful change creates emotional momentum. One positive choice encourages another. One peaceful decision inspires greater clarity. One hopeful thought opens the door to countless new possibilities. And somewhere within that momentum, your story and theirs continue moving closer, not through pressure, but through perfect timing. You might miss the turning point if you judge everything by what you can see today. The biggest shifts often happen beneath the surface first. Roots grow long before branches reach the sky. Foundations strengthen before the building appears. In the same way, the connection between two evolving hearts becomes stronger long before the world notices anything has changed. So ask yourself this. What if the happiness your soulmate feels today is only the first sign of something much greater that is still unfolding? Hold on to that question. Because the next chapter reveals what they are preparing to do with this newfound joy, and why the future now looks brighter than either of you could have imagined. For one final moment, set every expectation aside, because the next revelation isn't about chance. It's about what naturally happens when two lives begin moving in harmony. You've followed the quiet signs, the hidden shifts, and the unexpected happiness. But now the picture becomes clearer than ever before. Your soulmate is no longer standing where they once were. The person who spent so much time wondering, what if, has slowly begun asking a different question. What amazing possibilities are waiting ahead? That single change in perspective has transformed more than their thoughts. It has changed the way they greet each morning, the way they speak about tomorrow, and the way they notice opportunities that once passed them by unnoticed. This is the beautiful truth that few people ever recognize. Happiness isn't created in one dramatic moment. It grows through meaningful choices repeated over time. And your meaningful change became one of those choices that quietly inspired a brighter direction. Imagine walking through a forest just before sunrise. At first, everything appears wrapped in darkness. Then, almost without warning, the first golden rays begin touching the tallest trees. Nothing moved. Nothing rushed. Yet suddenly the entire landscape feels different. That is exactly what has happened within your soulmate. The light didn't arrive because someone forced it. It arrived because the right season finally met the right moment. And sometimes, that is all destiny has been waiting for. Before you leave this message behind, hear this carefully. You may still wonder whether your small acts of growth truly matter. You may question whether choosing patience, kindness, and purpose really changes anything beyond your own life. The answer is simpler than you think. Every meaningful improvement creates a ripple. Every ripple reaches places you cannot immediately see. Every unseen ripple has the potential to brighten another person's journey. Your soulmate is living proof of that quiet miracle. Without realizing it, they've become more hopeful, more open, more grateful, more excited about what tomorrow might bring. Not because life suddenly became perfect, but because they finally believe something wonderful is possible. And belief changes everything. Perhaps you've noticed similar changes within yourself as well. Moments that once felt heavy now pass more gently. Challenges no longer define your entire day. Dreams that seemed distant now feel surprisingly reachable. That isn't coincidence. It's what happens when growth becomes stronger than fear. Stay with this final reflection. Picture two rivers flowing separately for miles. Each follows its own path, shaped by different landscapes and different experiences. Yet, without rushing or forcing the journey, both rivers naturally move toward the same ocean. Neither one loses its identity. Instead, both become part of something greater. In many ways, meaningful connections unfold exactly like that. They aren't built through urgency. They aren't sustained through pressure. They flourish because both people continue becoming the best versions of themselves until the path ahead naturally becomes clearer. If this story brought encouragement to your heart, I'd love to hear what part spoke to you most. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you'd like more uplifting journeys like this, consider subscribing so we can continue exploring these inspiring stories together. Now carry this thought with you as the screen fades. Your meaningful change was never too small. It was never unnoticed. It became a quiet spark that helped another heart rediscover hope, possibility, and genuine happiness. And if today is already brighter because of one meaningful choice, imagine what tomorrow could become after many more. Sometimes the biggest news isn't that destiny suddenly arrived. Sometimes the biggest news is realizing it has been gently unfolding around you all along. Until next time, keep growing, keep believing, and remember, the most powerful transformations often begin in silence, long before the world finally sees their light. One last thought before this journey comes to a close: don't rush away just yet, because the final piece of the story is often the one that stays with you the longest. You've discovered why your soulmate feels happier than ever. You've seen how one meaningful change quietly reshaped two different paths. Now it's time to understand what this means for the road ahead. There comes a moment in every remarkable journey when people stop looking backward and begin walking forward with confidence. Your soulmate has reached that moment. The doubts that once slowed them down no longer hold the same power. The questions that once filled every quiet evening have slowly been replaced with calm expectation. They've realized something extraordinary. Real happiness isn't found by waiting for the perfect day. It's created by appreciating the meaningful changes already taking place. And somewhere along that path, your story became part of their brighter tomorrow. Think about how remarkable that truly is. You never needed to become someone else. You never needed to chase approval. You never needed to force the future to arrive faster. The simple decision to keep growing, learning, and becoming more authentic was enough to send a message louder than words ever could. That message reached a heart that was ready to receive it. And now, that heart carries more hope than it did before. Imagine looking back one day and realizing that today's quiet chapter was actually the beginning of something unforgettable. So many people miss these moments because they expect life to announce every turning point with noise. But the most meaningful chapters often begin with peace. Before this message ends, let this reminder stay with you. Never underestimate the influence of a single positive decision. One thoughtful choice can inspire another. One hopeful outlook can encourage someone you've never even spoken to today. One meaningful change can become the reason another person smiles without fully understanding why. That is the quiet beauty of human connection. If this message brought a sense of hope or encouragement into your day, I'd truly enjoy hearing your thoughts below. Your perspective may become the inspiration someone else needs to read today. And if you'd like to continue sharing these uplifting journeys together, you're always welcome to subscribe and be part of this growing community. Now, as this story reaches its final page, carry one lasting picture with you. Imagine the horizon just before sunrise. The sky is still calm. The world is still quiet. Yet you already know the light is coming. You don't have to pull the sun upward. You don't have to hurry the morning. You simply trust the process because every new dawn arrives exactly when it's meant to. Your journey is much the same. Keep becoming the person you're proud to be. Keep choosing patience over pressure. Keep believing that meaningful change always matters, even when the results are invisible at first. Because somewhere, those quiet choices continue creating hope, strengthening connections, and opening doors that yesterday seemed impossible to imagine. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a brighter chapter written through consistency, purpose, and genuine growth. Until our paths cross again, remember this simple truth. The happiest endings don't appear in a single moment. They are built one meaningful choice at a time. And perhaps the greatest chapter of all is the one that hasn't been written yet. A final whisper remains: if you've stayed until this moment, then perhaps this message was always meant to reach you exactly now. Every chapter you've heard has led to one simple realization: meaningful change never ends where it begins. It continues moving forward, touching lives, opening hearts, and creating opportunities that no one could have predicted at the start. Your soulmate is happier than ever. Not because they finally received every answer, but because they no longer fear the unknown. Something inside them has become steady. They have discovered that the future doesn't have to be perfectly planned to be deeply meaningful. That quiet certainty is changing the way they see everything. They notice beauty in ordinary days. They celebrate progress instead of perfection. They find reasons to smile where they once found reasons to hesitate. And although they may never know the exact moment this transformation began, its effect has become impossible to ignore. Have you ever watched the sky after a long storm? The clouds don't disappear all at once. Little by little, the sunlight begins finding small openings. Then, before you realize it, the entire horizon is glowing. Life often unfolds in exactly the same way. The brightest chapters rarely arrive in a single dramatic scene. They appear through countless quiet moments that slowly rewrite the story. Perhaps that's why this message found you today. Not to tell you that everything has already happened, but to remind you that something beautiful is still unfolding. Stay with this final reflection. There will always be voices that tell you to rush, to compare your journey with someone else's, to measure your progress by how quickly results appear. But meaningful change follows a different rhythm. It grows with patience. It strengthens through consistency. It shines brightest when no one is watching. Your soulmate has begun to recognize that truth. And maybe, deep inside, so have you. Imagine both of your journeys as two distant stars. For a long time, each one seemed to shine alone. Yet from a greater perspective, they were always part of the same constellation. Every experience, every lesson, every meaningful decision, every moment of growth, was quietly placing another star exactly where it needed to be. Now the picture is becoming clearer. Not because destiny suddenly appeared, but because you've finally reached the point where you can recognize the path that was forming all along. As this journey comes to its final goodbye, remember one thing above all else. Never underestimate the quiet power of becoming a better version of yourself. The world notices. The people around you feel it. And sometimes, someone you've never expected finds new hope simply because you chose growth over fear, kindness over frustration, and purpose over uncertainty. That is a legacy worth carrying. If this story stayed with you until the very end, thank you for sharing these moments together. Every thoughtful comment adds another voice of encouragement to this community, and your presence here makes each new journey even more meaningful. Until we meet again, keep your heart open to possibility. Keep walking forward with quiet confidence. Keep believing that the smallest meaningful change can create the greatest ripple. Because somewhere beyond Todd,